Hello, FlimsyLunchTray here with you today as we are back for our Saturday edition videos. We're doing an upgrade and commander build video. So today we're going to be looking at the Tier 10 American battleship, the Ohio, a battleship in which you earn in the Research Bureau. And this is a fantastic ship. Highly recommend it if you feel like grinding for the Research Bureau points, as she is a ship that I've been enjoying a lot, especially if you caught yesterday's video where I've broken several records already with Ohio, so having quite a good time with her. So we're going to be looking at the armor layout, the modules, upgrades, consumables, and commander, and the goal is to do that all within 30 minutes. So let's hop right into it. First, though, we need to talk about what type of battleship are we talking about. You have the long-range sniper battleships in the game. You have the more of those mid-range battleships in the game. And then you have those brawling battleships. To an extent, you could place Ohio in all three of those categories. I like to think of Ohio more as a brawling to mid-range battleship, particularly because she's armed with some really fantastic secondaries within the game, as you'll find on something like the Massachusetts, the Georgia. And then she has a 40-second cooldown on her repair party, and she just has these 457mm guns that can just smash. So let's first talk about the armor layout. So the armor layout hull is going to be identical to the Montana. So if you're very familiar with the Montana, it's basically that's what you're getting here in terms of the hull, the health pool here with Ohio. You have a 32mm fore-end plating and aft-end plating. We take away the deck plating and some more and look at the Citadel. It's basically a waterline Citadel, though if you show too much side, especially broadside, to other tier 10 battleships in the game, they can definitely smash you and do a lot of damage to you at range, with maybe something like a shell kind of coming in, maybe more at a downrange and punching through. So you have to be very conscious with the Ohio. You're really trying to work to angle as best as you can to avoid taking a punishing salvo. So looking at the modules, you have all modules. There's no other modules to research or purchase. With the setup we have right now, our reload time is 24.2 seconds. We have a 180-degree turn time of 27.6 seconds. Really good. And HE shell damage 6,450, and the maximum AP shell damage is 15,750. It's actually more than the Yamato. So if you get Citadel, you definitely get punished with Ohio like you would with Yamato. In terms of the hull, you have 96,300 hit points. You have fantastic secondaries. The main turrets are excellent. The AA is actually really good in comparison to the Montana. Here you can see a defense rating of 91, and then we look at the Montana, 90. So the AA is slightly better here on the Ohio. In terms of the main battery firing range, again with the setup we have, it's 21.7 kilometers. I think you could extend this out. I have to check with our upgrades here, but 21.7 to me is just fine. And then when facing ships even longer distance, we have the spotting aircraft, or maybe we're trying to slap a cruiser battleship that's just over a low-lying island. The propulsion stock is 28 knots. You can increase this, and I recommend you to do so with a lot of the faster ships here in World of Warships. So when we add the Sierra Mike flag, we get up to 29.4 knots. You might not think that that's a big deal, but it's actually really nice to have that extra speed if you're needing to disengage and get away from a flank. You're not going to outrun any type of Schlieffen with a Vampire 2 leading them in the smoke, because Schlieffen can do something I think like 39 knots as a Battlecruiser. But if you need to disengage, you need to go dark, it is nice to have that additional speed with the Sierra Mike flag on the Ohio. In terms of upgrades, I have mounted the main armaments modification 1. This reduces the risk of your main battery from becoming incapacitated by negative 20%, main battery survivability plus 50%, and main battery repair time negative 20% if your main battery should become incapacitated. This is a pretty standard, fair choice here with Ohio. Another one that I would equally argue would be very good for Ohio is the Auxiliary Armaments, Modification 1. Increases survivability of the secondary battery and that of the AA mounts by plus 100% for both of those. So if you're facing a lot of carriers, you're definitely playing a lot of that secondary brawling range, then something like this is probably going to be very nice for you. This is something I'm still toying with. I have over 25 battles, maybe almost 30 with Ohio, 16 in randoms at this point, and over 10-15 in brawls. I've not had an issue where I've noticed that my AA secondary battery survivability has suffered, but it's a really good option to take, especially with the HE meta and maybe getting knocked out. So when we're looking at the armor, let's actually hop back into that real quick, very briefly. We need to talk about the armor on the guns. It's 540 millimeter on the front, so that's actually pretty hard to knock out. Then it's a lot weaker on the side, 305 to 241. So if you're not paying attention, you can definitely get punished. The backside, 360. So the side turrets are vulnerable, I would say. So it'd be possible for them to be knocked out. I think I've had my one turret knocked out once or twice within my, let's say, 25 battles. So with these 457mm guns, I just like to keep them in action as best as possible, but this is arguably just as good. Magazine Modification 1. This reduces the risk of your ship's magazine detonating by -70%. If you've been around here on the channel long enough, when you're playing randoms, ranked, clan battles, you're going to be taking the Juliet Charlie combat signal, which completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. You also have the Spotting Aircraft. This increases the action time. These two are still much more worth it. Then you have Damage Control Party, which extends your consumable action time by a plus 40%. So then essentially you're going from a 22-second action time to over 30, if I'm registering that correctly in my mind. That is nice to an extent, but these still are the two top kingpins here. For the second slot, I have taken the Damage Control System Modification 1. It reduces the risk of fire and flooding, risk of catching fire, -5%, risk of flooding, -3%. This is what you want to take here. Thus far, in my battles, I've not had my engine knocked out that I can recall of the 25 battles I've played. But this just simply reduces the risk of your engine, your steering gears from becoming incapacitated. And I don't think I've even had my steering gears knocked out yet. This is something you see much more on destroyer or cruisers. So when you're trying to focus on your tankiness or survivability, I definitely recommend this. And I'll talk more about a tanky build here shortly. For the third slot, you first have the main battery modification 2. This increases the main battery traverse speed by plus 15%. Right now, as we shared, the 180-degree turn time is 27.6. When we look at something like the Montana, which I also have secondaries on, because you can get them out a little longer, it's 36 seconds. Usually the standard for the 180-degree turn time on battleships of the higher tier, it's usually around 30 seconds. We have a skill with Halsey, an enhanced grease the gears. So 27.6 is actually really nice. So it's not bad at all. But I want to go for the secondary battery modification 1 because it extends the secondary battery firing range by plus 20%, and the maximum secondary battery shell dispersion is reduced by -20%, so even more accurate secondary battery. So when we look at the secondaries, right now they have 3.2 second reload time and a maximum range of 10.8. But we come here and we mount this one. It is for secondaries. We're going to go to 3-second reload time and 11.3 kilometer maximum range. So that is the setup I would recommend here, because really the Ohio, it's about those secondaries, right? You can have a really good time with the secondary battery when you're getting in close and your battleship's pushing into you, as I demonstrated in yesterday's video, and even maybe the video from last week with Ohio and the Shakedown Cruise. A gun modifications, prior to A sector preparation time, -20%. Again, not something I would say is best here. Maybe something you see this more on an American cruiser or other cruisers in general. But really it's the secondary battery modification 1. You also have the artillery plotting room modification 1. This is what extends your main battery firing range, so we can go from that 21.7, add plus 16%, probably looking at 23, 24 kilometers, something like that. I don't see the need for it. I've been taking the spotting aircraft, and I mean, I don't want to play Ohio at 23 kilometers away. I want to get in that 16, 15, something like that, and closer. This also does have a little buff for the secondaries. Again, first and foremost, I'd recommend going this route with the secondary battery modification 1. For slot 4, we've mounted the damage control system modification 2. Fire extinguishing time, negative 15%. Flooding recovery time, negative 15%. So you want to increase your tankiness, your survivability to last longer in the battle, as it really helps. Without this module in yesterday's video, I would have died when the Sherman had me down to 89 HP, but we lived because we just exited his main battery firing range. So this literally kept me alive. Is the difference between life and death. So this is important to have, I would say, on any type of brawling battleship. You also have propulsion modification, something you see much more on destroyers, cruisers. Again, destroyers, cruisers. Airstrike modification. This would impact your depth charge airstrike, but your depth charge airstrike sucks on the Ohio. It's only a max range of 6 kilometers, where a lot of other battleships can be 10, 12. So it's not worth it. You want to increase your survivability and your endurance in fighting close range with other ships. For slot 5, we have the torpedo lookout system. Increases the assured acquisition range of torpedoes by 1.8 kilometers. No, it's something, maybe if you do a gross occur first build or a Preußen build with the hydroacoustic search with the commander, then maybe that's something you see that on. Not on Ohio. I would recommend the concealment system modification 1, because with the concealment right now, we are at 15.6, okay? The idea of why I'm taking concealment system modification 1, and I was kind of looking closely at this, is particularly for when you're needing to disengage, move away from a flank. Sometimes you're not able to completely disengage and go dark because of your speed only being 29.4 knots. So you have a destroyer, a cruiser, or a Schlieffen that can go 39 knots chasing you, right? It's a bit harder. But sometimes you need to go dark. You need to pop off those repair parties that have a reload time of 40 seconds. So for me, I would like this. It also increases dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship plus 5%. So there's a little bit of a buff there. What I was kind of looking at and toying with in my mind was the ship consumables modification 1. This increases the action time of all ship consumables, so your repair party, your damage control party, and your spotting or fighter aircraft by plus 10%. So that could be nice, but your concealment is going to bloom up to something like probably 17 kilometers, and I'm not comfortable with having 17 kilometers, especially when you have concealment when, let's say, you're playing something like ranked or clan battles and you're trying to move maybe stealthy. You don't want the enemy to know that you're moving up on this flank with your Ohio. The longer you can delay them knowing you're coming, it's a little bit better in that competitive scenario sense. Now, the 6th slot. This is something I'm going to spend probably a minute or two on, but I'll do my best to be short and brief and moving forward. Right now, I have been testing both the main battery modification 3 and the artillery room modification 2. I have about 11 or 12 battles with this, and all my battles thereafter have been with the main battery modification 3. So at least half and half of my battle experience so far has been testing out each of these modules, okay, or upgrades, okay? So let's talk about this one first. The main battery modification 3 reduces the reload time of the main battery guns. That is how we're able to get to that 24.2 or 20-second reload time. And then you saw that in yesterday's video. Then you saw us getting Confederate with Halsey, and then our adrenaline rush was kicking in, and we were getting like a 17-second reload time, okay? Really wicked with Ohio, okay? So it's good. You're increasing your damage per minute. The contrast, though, is that your main battery traverse speed is negative 13%. So you lose out a bit on the turret traverse. So I think originally, without that, if you take the artillery plotting room modification 2, which doesn't nerf your turret traverse, you're more like 24 seconds, I believe it was. And that actually did make a difference. I think it was, I'm trying to see. Yeah, it does make a difference. So when I switched, I started off with this upgrade, and then I switched to this, and I could tell a difference, like, oh, yeah, my turrets are slower. But they're not bad. I mean, they're still beneath 30 seconds, which is the standard typically for what you're able to get tier 10 battleships down to. Except, Yamato, that's a bit of a difference there with those guns. So 27.6 seconds is actually, it's really good. It doesn't bother me that I get a little bit of a nerf there on the main battery traverse speed. Now, with the artillery plotting room modification 2, this increases the firing accuracy of the main battery. So your maximum main battery shell dispersion is reduced by negative 11%. So that means you're having a greater maximum horizontal dispersion and greater maximum vertical dispersion. Greater as in smaller, it's reduced, it's tighter, okay? So right now, the Ohio has a sigma of 2.0. Sigma in the game, the higher the number, it means the more your shells are going to land in the central area that you're aiming, right? So it's more towards the center of where you're aiming. That's what sigma means. So Ohio, 2.0, Yamato, 2.10, and then Massachusetts, it's probably 1.8 or something, I'm not sure. It's less, okay? Just as an example. So when we're talking about the dispersion ellipse, vertically and horizontally speaking, right now with this setup, we have a maximum dispersion horizontal value of 274 meters, with a maximum dispersion vertically 165 meters, okay? We mount this one, it drops down to 244 meters, and then maximum dispersion vertically drops down to 147. So I'd have noticed a slight difference in going from this upgrade to this upgrade, that I'm losing a little bit of that accuracy I had before. It's nothing major that is like, wow, like the ship's just like has no accuracy, right? I showed you a brief clip at the end of yesterday's battle with Ohio, where I gave you an example of what it looks like without just having this, not having this. But there's some salvos you can have where it's just like, wow, like really tight grouping of the shells, like just smash, okay? And you still get that to an extent, even with the main battery modification 3. It's just up to RNG. So these two options are really up to you. If you're a much more aggressive battleship player, you want to be within secondary range, so on and so forth, you're probably going to get more value out of going with the main battery modification 3. One of the things I briefly discussed in yesterday's video was randoms battles, particularly in the meta we're in. You really aren't able to push in to the last half of the battle. So the first half of the battle with Ohio, maybe you're playing more that mid-range to longer range, and this is where the accuracy really comes in with that increased, reduced shell dispersion, right? More tighter grouping, so you can slap those ships at a longer distance with these 457mm guns. It's really up to you. I like both of them, and I'm still kind of torn between which of them I like. If you have an Ohio, let me know in the comments which one you prefer on your Ohio. And then you have Auxiliary Armaments Modification 2. This improves the efficiency of the secondary battery and the AA mounts. So our secondary battery reload time is reduced by negative 20%, okay? Which is actually quite noticeable. It is a difference. So if I look at the secondary reload time, I said it was 3 seconds. Okay, you're shaving 0.6 seconds off. So you're having a 2.4 second reload time on your secondary battery. Continuous AA damage goes up by plus 15. Damage from AA shell explosions go up by plus 15. And then you get 2 additional salvos, number of explosions produced by salvos by AA defense when your defensive AA fire consumable is active, but we don't have defensive AA fire consumable here on Ohio. So it's really the first 3 is what you're seeing, okay? When we're looking at the AA defense, our continuous damage right now is 452 and then 1,680. So you could definitely increase this more. You saw in yesterday's video we were dealing with tier 8 CV and we really just wrecked him. And you have that 91 rating already with the AA defense. You could make it greater, but I don't think the AA is what you really want to be going for with Ohio. If you're going to go for an AA ship, do something like the Wooster, the tier 10 American cruiser, light cruiser. Here with Ohio, it's really about the main battery and the secondary battery. Okay, moving on swiftly. Consumables, damage control party. Our consumable action time is 22 seconds, reload time of 80 seconds. This is the standard what you're going to find on most battleships of the higher tier. With the repair party, we have it set up where we're getting a lot with our commander build. Our HP per second is 481. I can mount the India Delta combat signal, and that jumps up to 577. So that's really good. Action time, 30.8 seconds. Very good. Reload time, 40 seconds. It's fantastic. It's just like what you have on the Georgia and the Massachusetts, and it's one of the things that makes these battleships in particular very strong in the game. And we have 5 repair parties with our commander build. Here you have spotting aircraft and fighter. I've not messed with taking the fighter yet. I have had some matches with aircraft, even or with CVs, even with the super aircraft carriers like United States and Eagle. Ultimately, your fighter is never going to stop the first strike. It just shoots down their planes after they've made their first strike if they get caught by your fighters. But because the AA value is really good with Ohio, I've just elected to go with spotting aircraft because it's nice to be able to reach out, maybe hit that battleship or cruiser that's sailing away or put her behind an island, so on and so forth. So I stuck with spotting aircraft, but you can switch between the two. It's really up to you and what you find works best for you. But you have a very much longer reload time. What's nice about the fighter is you can use them as a spotter in the sense of spotting maybe a ship or a destroyer that's behind an island, right? Has a much quicker reload time. So that's what's nice about here. All right, Commander. Already 22 minutes in. So I have William Halsey. If you're wondering how to get William Halsey, let me just quickly show you. It's in campaigns, and then you want to do the hit hard, hit fast, hit often campaign. You go through it. I'm trying to polish some off right now. And when you get to the final task, you get Halsey. And he starts off as 15 points, along with some other rewards. So that is how you obtain Halsey. What is unique about Halsey is several things. First, his talents. He has the implacable talent. The Confederate achievement speeds up the reload time of the ship's armament and aircraft servicing. This is what I got yesterday, okay? So main battery reload time dropped by negative 20%. That's what got me paired with Adrenaline Rush down to that 17-second reload time with these 457mm guns, which is just crazy. So that's the talent there. You also have a faster squadron preparation time, aircraft carrier, or if you have torpedoes on your ship, then you get a negative 10% reduction in your reload time for the torpedoes. So really, this is really fun to have on your premium ships and running Halsey, American battleships, cruisers, destroyers, or carriers for that matter. Then we have Untraceable. This is a can-be activated skill. It's when you get the double strike, it reduces the detectability range of your ship and aircraft carrier squadrons by negative 10%. I have only activated this talent once. I think I run Halsey specifically for my Des Moines. I got it once, but it was the last 2 ships of the game, so it didn't really get any value out of it. And then you just get some personalizations with the flag, colorized shell tracers. When you first get Halsey, these are turned off, or any of these great, fantastic commanders. So you want to click it if you want to turn it on. The other 2 things and perks with Halsey, which is what I'm going to recommend for a 3-point build, 1 point and then 3-point commander, is the gun feeder. Time taken to switch shell type, negative 75%, then the standard negative 50%. So this is why I run him on Des Moines. It's like instant switch practically. And then when I was switching to shell type the other day, I think it was like it's like a 5-6 second reload time when you're switching between a high explosive or armor piercing. So it's very strong on Ohio. Then you have Grease the Gears, main battery traverse speed plus 25%. The standard is plus 20%, but we have it as 25% with Halsey. So that's really his two enhanced skills in connection with his talent. So he's very strong, and I would definitely recommend to have him on your Ohio. Okay. For a 6-point commander build, probably what I would recommend is the... do I recommend going secondaries first or Adrenaline Rush first? Honestly, probably the secondaries, because for me personally, I like to play around the secondaries with this ship in addition to the main battery. So 6-point commander, I'd recommend going for the long range secondary battery shells. This is what gets us out to that 11.3 kilometer range in connection with the upgrades in that combat signal that we took. And then I would recommend going for manual secondary battery aiming. Secondary battery reload time, negative 10%. Maximum secondary battery shell dispersion, negative 10%. Those two are a permanent effect. And then time taken to reach maximum efficiency with your secondaries to get it down to an additional negative 50% is 45 seconds. It used to be before 10.0, you had negative 60% instant. But since the commander rework with several changes they made, they finally figured out, oh, actually, we need to change it back a little bit, but we're going to make it different. So this is very good to have on Ohio, going for that secondary battery build. Then for 14-point build, I'd recommend next going for Fire Prevention Expert. Reduces the risk of catching fire. The maximum number of fires on a ship is reduced to 3. Risk of catching fire, negative 10%. Maximum number of fires, negative 1. If you're new here and you're not entirely sure what fire prevention does, let me briefly talk about it, okay? So maybe you say, I never get 4 fires on my ship. Why would I need Fire Prevention Expert? Because I usually only have 3. Well, fire prevention, what it does is, without Fire Prevention Expert, you have a fire on your bow, on your stern, and you have 2 on the superstructure, 1 on the forward part, 1 on the rear part of the superstructure. Fire prevention takes these 2 fires and makes it just 1 fire. So you're not losing as much damage. With a lot of the HE meta, a lot of destroyer cruiser players spamming HE at you, Thunderers, Conquerors, they're focusing on your superstructure, right? So when you have Fire Prevention Expert, you're increasing your endurance, your tankiness, your survivability. Getting a little tongue-tied there. That is the point of the Fire Prevention Expert, okay? So I really recommend this. In addition, risk of catching fire, negative 10%. It's nice to have that. So that's a 14-point build. After this, 14, let's see, which one do I want to recommend next? Can probably be up to you, to be honest. I had the luxury, I already had just gotten Halsey up to 21 points a week ago. Probably what I'm going to recommend is the Adrenaline Rush. This enhances the ship's parameters for each 1% of HP loss. Main battery reload time, negative 0.2. Airstrike armament reload time, negative 0.2. Secondary battery reload time, negative 0.2. Continuous AA damage goes up by plus 0.2. Okay, so this is what enabled me to fully get down to that 17-second reload time with having Halsey, with the Confederate. Without Confederate Halsey, that 24.20 second reload time can get down to 22 seconds, maybe 21 point something. So that is the power of the Adrenaline Rush when you pair it with the main battery modification 3. And then last but least, I would recommend the Emergency Repair Expert. The action time of your damage control party consumable goes up by plus 10%. You get an additional charge to your damage control party, but we don't have limited charges on Ohio. It's unlimited. Then your repair party consumable action time plus 10%, so you've been able to heal back more damage. Number of repair party consumable charges goes from 4 to 5. This is what I would recommend on the Ohio. Okay. I even talked with a community contributor who kind of led me to this build. And for me, this is what I found that has worked the best. With this build, I have done, when we're talking about the damage, I've tanked 4.1 million potential. I've tanked 4.1 million potential damage. Okay, with this build, and I get dreadnoughts regularly with the Ohio. So this build can have a lot of stamina, endurance, survivability, tankiness, while also at the same time you're getting some good work out of your secondaries here. Okay. If I was to recommend 2 other builds with the commander, what would those be? Well, one, you could go for an even more tankier build than what I'm running right now. You could pick up the basics of survivability, the module restoration time, -15%, fire extinguishing time, -15%, flooding recovery time, -15%, okay? But that means we have to give up something, and you're going to have to choose between either Adrenaline Rush or the long-range secondary battery shells. You have to choose between one of those two, give that up to take the basics of survivability. That is, if you don't have a secondary brawling type battleship, a lot of players, they don't end up going for this, right? And then they take basic survivability. That's just kind of a standard skill, if you will, on a battleship. So that could be another build. Another build option is, let's say you want to be even more of an aggressive brawling battleship build, then you want to pick up the close quarters combat. This reduces, it can be activated effect, your main battery reload time, -10%. This is when an enemy ship gets within your secondary battery range, so that's 11.3 kilometers to activate this effect. So you might have a game where you might only be within secondary battery range of an enemy ship for, let's just say 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, right? And then this can be activated skill is rather useless. Other times you could be brawling up a storm and you're getting a lot of reward out of this. And the current meta, I don't see this happening as much in comparison to before the commander rework of 10.0, okay? So I wouldn't recommend this as much. Another thing you could look at is the focus fire training. This would get your AA damage level up even more. Again, if you wanted to go for an AA ship, then go for a cruiser and make an AA build out of that, not a battleship, okay? So this is the build I'm going to first and foremost recommend for you. Then secondly, you could do more tanky build, but you gotta give up one of these two. Or you could go for a super aggressive build with the close quarters combat. Then when we're looking here, one of the things I wanted to mention, let's say you don't actually brawl too much in this ship and you want to make it more revolve this ship more around the main battery, then you could take the main battery modification 2 to improve your main battery traverse speed, and then take the artillery plotting room to have more accurate salvos. That's something else you could do here with the Ohio. But I want to go ahead and wrap this video up. We've already gone over 32 minutes, and I want to respect your time because I really try to keep these videos at 30 minutes. There's just a lot going on with the Ohio, and I really enjoy playing her. She's a lot of fun. If you have questions about a commander skill I did not go over, let me know in the comments. If you already have an Ohio, let me know what you're running build-wise. I really like this commander build. I run this for Ohio, Georgia, Massachusetts, and it's just been fantastic. Or actually, my Massachusetts build is slightly different with the main battery giving up the grease the gears for priority target. I can explain that. That's a different reason for Massachusetts. Not going to get into it now, but this build that I've showed you with the commander is really ideal, in my opinion, when we're talking about the brawling battleships, especially here with these American battleships. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you have subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.